need you to understand, if you are chronically stressed due to your job in your 9 to 5, this is urgent. It's an urgent matter. There are things that could happen that could escalate this, and your health could take a significant turn for the worse. Your mental health could take a significant turn for the worse. Your quality of life can take a significant turn for the worse, again, if it hasn't already. So this conversation is so important, but most importantly, y'all, we have to stop thinking that because something is ubiquitous, i.e., because something is common, because something is happening to a lot of people, that makes it less dangerous. Like, I'm gonna give you an example. When I teach health, most people, when they're overweight, they don't see being overweight as a pre-existing condition. I'll ask, like, do you have any pre-existing conditions? And they'll literally say, no, I'm healthy. I just need to lose weight. There's a complete disconnect that being overweight makes you unhealthy. People really think I can be overweight, but still claim to be in optimal health. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. If you are overweight and you have all of the visceral fat around your arteries and you have producing all of the excess hormones that comes with being overweight, and you have all of the health risks that comes with being overweight, you are not healthy. And that's the same thing people tend to do with their career. Like, no, I'm good, no stress, I'm happy. I just hate my job. I just hate what I do. Because so many people hate what they do, because so many people are overweight, people tend to disconnect the urgency from it.
Optimal health is not a privilege, it's a right. However, unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of health challenges today can be attributed to lifestyle. This includes our physical activity, the quality of our relationships, stress, purpose and fulfillment, and of course, our diet. But what if there was an alternative? What if we could prevent and combat these health challenges with lifestyle changes before pills and procedures? You are listening to the Plant Protocol podcast with yours truly, plant-based health and business coach, and now the forever voice in your head, Lisa A. Smith. It's time to come get this health.
So there is a psychologist and a professor who I've been listening to, and his name is Dr. Saad. And Dr. Saad specializes in evolutionary psychology. He's a professor, he's an author, and he's kind of known for marrying the science of psychology and human behavior to relationships and happiness. And one of the things that Dr. Saad says, which I 100% agree with, is that there are two decisions that you make in life that has the biggest determinant on your overall happiness, quality of life, and life satisfaction. And what Dr. Saad said is that the first of those decisions is who you're going to spend life with, who you marry, right? If you decide to get married, or who you select as a partner, whether that looks like marriage or not. So Dr. Saad suggests that who you decide to do life with is one of the most important decisions that you'll ever make. But then he went on to say that the second most important decision that you'll ever make is your career. What do you do for work? Making the decision on how you earn a living, how you spend 40 plus hours a week is also one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. And I've heard this before. I've heard it from different seasoned professionals and successful individuals saying your partner is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make, right? Your career is one of the biggest decisions you ever make. But I've never believed it more as I do now, with over a decade of coaching under my belt and constantly having conversations with individuals who are unhappy in their relationship or in their career. So this is definitely verified by my little data points in the big world, right? And so today I want to share with you 2 impossible reasons why your career specifically is causing you stress and what to do about it. I have talked to several clients and community members over the year about their job, and many, many, many people are feeling a ridiculous amount of stress from their career, from their 9 to 5, sometimes even from their own business, right? And sometimes we're labeling it as just a part of the game or something I have to deal with, or there's no way out. Whatever it is, many people are suffering in their career. And I want to give you a reason why that is. And I want to specifically talk about 9 to 5s. If you're struggling and the biggest source of your stress right now is coming from the work that you're doing every day in your 9 to 5, then this episode is for you. So I'm going to give you 2 impossible reasons why you're struggling in your 9 to 5. And this is data that has been collected in the past decade. I could really, at this point, start a research center, right? Like I could really start a center of R&D, research and development on human behavior, with all of the thousands and thousands of conversations I've had with you guys over the years. All of the feedback I've gotten from you guys when I do episodes like this and you tap in and say, that's me, you were talking to me. That's exactly where I'm struggling and here's why. And so at this point, listen, all the research, I don't have to go outside of my ecosystem to get data. What a blessing, right? So this information today, 2 impossible reasons why your career, specifically your 9 to 5, is the biggest source of your stress, is coming directly from you guys. All I'm about to do is tell you what you've told me. Okay? That's all I'm about to do is tell you what you told me. So I got 2 impossible reasons why that is. Now, before we get into those reasons, it is very important that you have your emotional support beverage on deck today, because I'm going to tell you right now, the first reason is going to be a reality check. The second reason might hurt your feelings. Okay. The first reason I'm going to share as to why you're stressed out in your career is probably going to be a big eye opener. There might be a little revelation. It's going to be confirmation for some of you guys. But that second reason I'm going to share why your job is stressing you out, that's the one that might peel back your edges a little bit. That's the one that might get you in your feelings. That's the one that might get you mad at me when I ain't did nothing. I'm just a messenger, right? But we love to be mad at the messenger when we can't deal with the responsibility of being in our current situation. So as I mentioned when we started this conversation, Dr. Saad, this evolutionary psychologist, says that the 2 most important decisions you make in life are going to be who you spend it with and what you do for work, what you do for a living. 2 most important decisions you're going to make in life. And I have never agreed more, hands down, unequivocally. And I'm sure many of you have had the same experience where you're just like rolling over every morning, like, was this the right choice? And or going into that job, like, was this the right choice, right? And so for a lot of us, the biggest sources of our stress lies within a relationship or within our career. And so here's what I want to be clear before we move forward, right? Because today we're talking about 9 to 5 career stress and why it exists. But I want to be clear that I'm not here to propose that everybody should be an entrepreneur. Nope. Not by any means. I do not want you guys to take away from this that you should start your own business. Absolutely not. Now, for me, I probably won't ever do anything else but work for myself. It's the most rewarding thing. I am 12 out of 10 pleased with my career, with my work, with how I show up in the world, with how I give back to the world, with doing meaningful and purposeful work. I feel like I hit the career lottery. That's how happy I am in my work and in my job and in my business, right? However, I don't believe everyone should start a business, and I don't believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. And this stings me to say because I haven't always believed this, but I also don't believe everybody has what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I did not used to think like that. I really used to think in my naivete that anybody could do it, right? But a decade in, but most importantly, after 5 years of doing business coaching, I also don't believe everybody has what it takes, okay? So exiting from your 9 to 5, if that becomes a thing that you realize you need to do, is not me suggesting that you need to start your own business. It's also not me suggesting that everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Some of you just need to find a different 9 to 5. Some of you just need to find a different 9 to 5. And others of you might be looking at something totally different. Like you're in that season where you don't want another job. You actually want to retire and be still for a while, or you want to get into philanthropy, whatever it is, right? So as we're going through this conversation today, I have absolutely no bias towards entrepreneurship. Even though I'm a full-time entrepreneur, I have been for a long, long time. I am not suggesting that everybody should be, and I don't think everybody has what it takes, okay? But I am going to tell you what your options are if your stress is coming from career. Because if your stress is coming from your career, you want to do something about it sooner than later, especially if your life expectancy is important to you. I'm going to say that again. If the biggest source of stress for you is your work, is your career, you want to do something about it sooner than later, especially if your life expectancy is important to you. All of the data we have about aging, all of the data we have about aging well and aging in a healthy manner shows that the thing that you choose to do as your contribution to society plays one of the biggest roles in your longevity and your quality of life. So if health is a core value for you, the conversation that we're about to have is beyond important. Because if you don't do something about the stress that's coming from your work, you are inadvertently potentially shortening your life expectancy and diminishing your quality of life if you haven't already experienced that. And I'm going to tell you, as somebody who started off as a health coach who now does business coaching and personal development coaching, I have had clients who have ended up in the hospital from the stress from their job. I have had clients and students who had to take mental health leaves because of the stress from their job. I've had clients who have ended up with diagnoses and on medications because of the stress from their job. So this conversation is so important, but most importantly, y'all, we have to stop thinking that because something is ubiquitous, i.e., because something is common, because something is happening to a lot of people, that makes it less dangerous. Like, I'm gonna give you an example. When I teach health, most people, when they're overweight, they don't see being overweight as a pre-existing condition. I'll ask, like, do you have any pre-existing conditions? And they'll literally say, no, I'm healthy. I just need to lose weight. There's a complete disconnect that being overweight makes you unhealthy. People really think I can be overweight, but still claim to be in optimal health. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. If you are overweight and you have all of the visceral fat around your arteries and you have producing all of the excess hormones that comes with being overweight, and you have all of the health risks that comes with being overweight, you are not healthy. And that's the same thing people tend to do with their career. Like, no, I'm good, no stress, I'm happy. I just hate my job. I just hate what I do. Because so many people hate what they do, because so many people are overweight, people tend to disconnect the urgency from it, right? So before we go forward, I need you to understand, if you are chronically stressed due to your job in your 9 to 5, it's an urgent matter. There are things that could happen that could escalate this, and your health could take a significant turn for the worse. Your mental health could take a significant turn for the worse. Your quality of life can take a significant turn for the worse. Again, if it hasn't already. All right. So here's what I know to be true. Now, for those of you who do feel like your exit strategy from your 9 to 5 is entrepreneurship, let me say this, and then we'll get into our 2 and a possible reasons. Okay. For everybody who thinks, I want to work for myself so I can have the freedom that I don't have in my 9 to 5. Let me give you a quick reality check. And this is not suggesting that you should change your plan, but this is to set your expectations. Okay. Okay. So when I'm teaching entrepreneurship to like teenagers, like audiences and things like that, when I do it as a speaking engagement, not when I'm coaching clients, but when I do it as a speaking engagement, I often ask the audience, can somebody raise their hand and tell me why you should start a business? What's the purpose of starting a business, right? And inevitably, all the students or whatever, all the people, they start saying to work for yourself. So you don't have a boss, right? To make money, everybody start naming all these reasons that have to do with their desires, right? I want freedom to control my time so I can wake up when I want to, when I can go where I want to go. So I don't have a boss and anybody telling me what to do. That's all the reasons I ever hear when I ask the audience, why should you start a business? And I always tell them, no, not true. You don't start a business for time freedom. You don't start a business for financial freedom. You don't start a business so you don't have anybody telling you what to do or so that you don't have to report to anybody. You don't even start a business to make money. You start a business to solve a problem. So all of you who are thinking about maybe entrepreneurship is the way I should be going. Maybe it is. You 100% could be right. But if you're only thinking about entrepreneurship because you hate your 9 to 5 so much that you think working for yourself is the solution, let me say this for you. Time and financial freedom is to entrepreneurship what health insurance and a 401k are to a 9 to 5. I'm going to say it again. Time and financial freedom is to entrepreneurship what health insurance and a 401k is to a 9 to 5. In other words, they are great benefits, but not sustainable enough of a motive to stay. So having time freedom, having financial freedom, not having a boss, being able to work from anywhere in the world are great benefits to owning a business. But it is not, trust me when I tell you, it is not a sustainable motive to stay, right? After 1 hard year, 2 hard year, 3 hard years in business, is the promise of time and financial freedom gonna be enough to get you to stick it out, to get you to go through all the peaks and valleys and all the seasons of famine and feast, right? So I'm gonna say this one more time. Time and financial freedom is to entrepreneurship what health insurance and 401k are to a 9 to 5. Sometimes you guys stay in the 9 to 5 because you're like, I need the health insurance and I want the retirement plan and whatever other benefits come with the job. But you're miserable, which means those things don't solve the other problems. They're just nice to have, right? So don't start your own business just because you want time freedom and financial freedom because you're miserable in your 9 to 5. You start a business to solve a problem. It is that mission, whatever problem you decide to solve, that will sustain you. That's the motive that sustains you of all the hard things that it takes to run a business. And let me say one more thing about entrepreneurship before we get into these reasons your job is stressing you out. If the reason your job is stressing you out is because of the workload, meaning it's too much. I remember when I was a social worker for the state of Michigan, as a foster care worker, one of the biggest complaints for the county that I worked in, Oakland County, Michigan, was that the caseloads were too high because we didn't have enough social workers. We didn't have a big enough team. And so all of us had way more caseload. So way more kids and families that we were managing than technically we could manage, that we could sustain, right? And so let's say that part of the reason your 9 to 5 is stressful is because of the workload, i.e. how much you have to do is too much. Or maybe part of the reason your 9 to 5 has become stressful is because the work is boring. Maybe the work is redundant. Maybe the work is tedious. Maybe it's not enough money. Maybe the work isn't meaningful enough. So here's the issue. I need you to know that when you decide to start your own business, the only thing that's going to be different is the workload is not going to be different. As a matter of fact, it'll probably be 10 times more than what you're doing at your 9 to 5. The fact that you're going to have boring, redundant, and tedious tasks is not going to change. Matter of fact, you'll probably have more of them in your own business. Okay. The fact that you don't make enough money on your job, which makes you hate it, also probably won't change when you start your own business. It takes time to, first of all, create revenue. Second of all, to create predictable recurring revenue. So you can have a good month in business, but can you have a good 6 months in business? Can you have a good 12 months in business? Can you have a good 24 months in business, right? So if you want to leave your 9 to 5 to start your own business because of the workload, because of the boredom or the tediousness or the redundancy of the work, because of the money, and you think you're going to come over to entrepreneurship and it's going to be different right away, it's not. The thing that sustains you in business is meaning. That's why you only start a business to solve a problem. And you start a business to solve a problem that means something to you. Because when you have meaning in all of that, that makes all of the tedious, boring, and redundant tasks bearable. When you have meaning in your work, that's what makes the fact that your workload is beyond what you could ever imagine bearable. Okay. So the thing that changes when you start your own business, if you start the business for the right reason, is that you have meaning. Meaning and doing meaningful work, purposeful work, work that really, really ignites your spirit and your soul is what helps you to get through the months when you don't make that much revenue. It helps you get through the months and the weeks where the work is boring. Like there's parts of the job that I look forward to, like this right here. Like anytime I'm teaching, speaking, or coaching, my favorite part of my day. But then after this, I have to go do some stuff that's kind of boring, that's not that exciting. And I do most of that. That's what I do most of the day. When I'm going to be on here with y'all for like an hour. And then the rest of the day, guess what? I'm doing stuff that's not that exciting. right? And so if you're trying to leave a job that's not that exciting and think you're going to come over into entrepreneurship and it's just going to be all exciting all the time, you're so wrong. But the thing that gets me to keep doing the tasks that aren't that exciting is the meaning behind them. So if you come over here because you want time freedom and financial freedom, you're not going to be able to perform with excellence because you're here for yourself. I remember a quote that I heard, and this person was specifically talking about how they hire people at their company, right? And they said, I don't like to hire people based on money. Like, I don't like to offer the biggest packages or whatever, because I don't want somebody to come work for me just for the money. Because they said, if they come for money, they'll leave for money, which means the work and the job never meant much to them. They were just here for the money. And I'm saying the same thing to you. If you're coming into entrepreneurship for time freedom and financial freedom, you'll leave for the same reason. Like the moment you think, here's an easier way to do it, or let me shut this business down and start another initiative because the time freedom and money freedom ain't coming financially, not coming quick enough here. Same thing. If you come for that, you'll leave for that. So you have to come for meaning. You don't start a business for the benefits. You start a business to solve a problem. So time and financial freedom is to entrepreneurship what health insurance and 401k is to a 9-to-5. Great benefits, not a sustainable motive to stay. Okay. So we have to stop glorifying those things of entrepreneurship and making it seem like it's so crazy that I have time freedom. I have geographic freedom, right? I have this financial, there's no limit on how much money I can make. That's all very true. All very true. But it's so crazy how most of my time and freedom is spent serving y'all. Sometimes it ain't as free as you think. Sometimes it takes years to get to that freedom that you're picturing in your mind, where you're literally getting out of bed when you want to. No, I was up at 4 a.m. this morning. Okay. That wasn't my first choice. Okay. Now, that's a wonderful introduction. Let's get into the reasons why your job is stressing you out. Remember, reason number 1 is going to be a reality check for you guys. Reason number 2 is going to hurt a lot of y'all feelings, and the possible is going to hurt y'all feelings too. We got 2 in a possible, okay? We got 2 in a possible. Here we go. The first reason that I have gathered from talking to thousands of you over the last decade as to why your 9-to-5 is stressing you out and you're not doing much about it and you're not moving is because you don't believe in yourself. Okay, so the biggest reason that people stay in miserable careers is because they don't believe in themselves. Okay, so what that's looked like for a lot of people that I've coached, right? They're like, Lisa, I'm definitely interested in doing something else. Like, I'm over this job, I'm over this work, whatever. Now, for a lot of people, they have been entertaining their own business, right? Like, yeah, I'm definitely interested in having my own business, doing my own thing. I got this idea, or there's a population of people that I really want to be in service to. And they're like, I want to start my own thing, but I just don't have the confidence. I have imposter syndrome. I don't believe in myself. Okay. Let me say this to you, group of people who really struggle with believing in yourself. Okay. There's 2 major things that I need you to consider here. Okay. There's 2 major things that I need you to consider. If part of the reason you are not making any effort to leave a miserable 9-to-5 because of your self-esteem, because of your lack of confidence, because of your imposter syndrome, because you don't believe in yourself, my advice to you is to stay exactly where you are. But let me tell you why. Stay exactly where you are until you get to the root of your low esteem, because you can't bring, I expect to lose energy into the next thing you do. When you don't believe in yourself, when you feel like you don't have what it takes, and I don't know what the it is, but if you don't feel like you have what it takes to do, fill in the blank, to start a business, to go after the career you really want, whatever it is. What I've seen countless times is people bring, I expect to lose energy to the next thing they try and start. And inevitably, it doesn't work out. And it wasn't because it couldn't have worked out. It was because they expected to lose, because they showed up with so much low self-esteem, with so much imposter syndrome, with so much, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I don't look like that, I don't sound like that, I don't have those degrees, those certificates, those diplomas, I don't have that. And so all of those insecurities flare up into whatever they try to decide to do next. So that I expect to lose energy completely rots whatever else they try. Okay. So if you're stuck in your 9 to 5 because maybe you have an idea of what you want to do, but you don't believe in yourself. Okay. Stay where you are and get to the root of why you don't believe in yourself. And let me tell you the reasons I've heard as to why people don't believe in themselves and what I've seen, like repeatedly. Okay. What I've seen is people essentially have had somebody in their life who has told them things like they would never amount to anything, they aren't good enough, they don't have what it takes, they're not smart enough to be successful or survive on their own. They maybe grew up with a parent or a caregiver who expected perfection and they never felt like they can live up to their expectations. And so now they're living out that person's expectations that they would never be perfect, that they would never amount to anything. I've had people share with me that they've had teachers who have said stuff like this to them. They've had professors that have said stuff like this. They've had ex-husbands and ex-wives who have said stuff like this to them. And so if you've had somebody who has completely ruined your self-esteem, who has completely destroyed your confidence, if you had an experience where maybe you had a failed venture that has completely discolored what you believe is possible, that has caused you to start playing small, that has caused you to start dimming your light, I need you to work on that before you do anything else. Don't even think about leaving the job yet, because you're going to bring, I expect to lose energy to the next thing. And if you bring, I expect to lose energy, and you're not going to do it on purpose. Let me be clear. Like you're not a bad person. You're not going to do it on purpose. You just don't believe in yourself. And so it's almost like if something can go wrong, it will energy. And so soon as something goes wrong, you feel like, see, I told you, and now more stuff is going to go wrong. It's just you attracting that, like you're manifesting some of that. Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if you bring, I expect to lose energy because you have imposter syndrome and because you don't believe in yourself, like how dare you leave this career and try and go do something else? Okay. And let me tell you something else that might be a bit of an eye opener to a lot of you, which is for some of you, if this is the reason that you're struggling, if number one is you and you genuinely are struggling because you don't believe in yourself and because you have low self-esteem, your issue might not even be that you need to leave your 9 to 5. Your issue might not even be that you need to be searching for a new career. Your issue might be the reason you're miserable at your job is because you don't believe in yourself. The reason you're miserable at the 9 to 5 is because you don't have no confidence. Your 9 to 5 experience might be less than ideal because you lack self-esteem, meaning you believe you deserve more money, but you don't advocate for yourself, right? You know they taking advantage of you by giving you all this work and appointing you to all this responsibility, but you don't advocate for yourself, right? You're shrinking in rooms where you should absolutely have a voice, but you never speak up. So the same behavior that's preventing you from doing something different is the same behavior that's driving your misery in your 9 to 5. That's why I said, don't leave. Fix this problem first, because it might not even be an issue of I need to switch jobs. It's a you issue sometimes where I'm so afraid of rejection, so I never ask for what I want. I'm so intimidated by people that seem like they have bigger titles and more experience than me, so I never speak up in rooms. Like, that's not going to change when you leave a job. So I don't know if you're miserable at the job because of the job for real or because of how you're showing up at the job. Because if you are actually in a position where you're doing meaningful work that you actually are in love with, maybe you're in love with the patients or the clients or the people that you guys serve. Maybe you actually enjoy the work itself, but it's how you're showing up in the culture that's keeping you miserable, right? Because you're constantly every day betraying yourself. You feel the nudge to say something and you mute yourself. You watch yourself being disrespected and you don't advocate for yourself, right? You see an opportunity comes up that you should apply for, that you should volunteer for, but you never do it because you're so afraid of somebody else being more qualified and you're afraid of being rejected. So if you're miserable in your 9 to 5 because you don't believe in yourself, stay where you are and work on that. Be honest about the root of your low self-esteem and your low confidence, right? And work on that. So if you know, yeah, this definitely roots from, that teacher telling me in elementary school or middle school or high school that, I wasn't smart, or that I wouldn't succeed, or that I would never amount to nothing. If it goes back to a marriage or a toxic relationship that you were in where somebody just walked all over your self-esteem, like heal from that. That's where your work needs to start. Okay. Because we think the job needs to change when it's really us who needs to change. All right. So that's reason number one why you might be miserable.
Let me ask you something. How much is stress costing you? Is it costing you your energy, your focus, your health, your peace? See, most of us have been told to manage chronic stress, but here's the truth. Managing chronic stress isn't enough. You deserve to eliminate it at the root. That's why we created the Clarity Lab, where stress meets strategy. The Clarity Lab is a 5-day immersive stress focus group. It's an experience that's designed to help you uncover your biggest stress triggers, reframe how you respond to pressure, and build a personalized strategy for sustainable health and performance. In just 5 days, you will walk away better understanding what's at the root of your stress, what limiting beliefs have been keeping you stuck, and more important, how to start moving with confidence, control, and clarity. And the best part, you won't do it alone. You'll be guided by myself and my team of coaches alongside a powerful community on the journey to do the exact same thing. So, if you're ready to stop paying the price of stress and start living with clarity, join us inside of our next Clarity Lab. Spots are limited, but you can secure yours right now at lisaangelsmith.com/Clarity Lab. That's lisaangelsmith.com/Clarity Lab. Clarity Lab is where stress meets strategy. I'll see you in the lab.
Okay. Reason number two. This one gonna hurt a little bit. The second biggest reason why people are miserable in their careers is because they're afraid of losing what they've accumulated. They're afraid of losing what they're accumulated. Another word for this is you have a middle class mindset. So listen to this. I remember my coach, E.T., I heard him explain this concept on stage many, many years ago. And I haven't repeated it or taught from it much since then because I had to verify it for myself. Now, years later, after talking to hundreds of you, coaching you guys, this has never been more true. Many of us are stuck in completely unpleasant, undesirable circumstances, not because we can't move, but because we won't move, because we're afraid of losing all that we've accumulated. You in this 9 to 5, you have anxiety on Sunday night before it's time to go in. You got an attitude all day while you're there. You can't be present and open with your family at the end of the day because the job done stressed you out. You eating all your feelings. You drinking all your feelings. You smoking all your feelings, like a bag of candy, love to see you coming. A chocolate bar, love to see you coming. A glass of wine, a cocktail, love to see you coming. The drive-through, love to see you coming. That's the only way you coping with this misery, right? Meanwhile, your family and friends hate to see you coming because you're complaining, you're miserable, you never want to do nothing. You believe you can only live your life on a Friday or Saturday night. Go out on a Wednesday. Are you insane? I got to work tomorrow. Like your whole life, whole quality of life is upside down and inside out. Not because you can't make a different decision, not because you can't start the business, not because you can't find another job, it's because you refuse to change anything because your middle class mindset says, I'm afraid of losing everything I've accumulated. Okay? So let me be clear about something real quick, because I don't want this to come off as judgment. I am not suggesting that there's anything wrong with being middle class. There's not. Here's the problem. Okay? The only time there's something wrong with being middle class is when you're miserable and you complaining about it and you're not changing anything. Like you can be miserable, but you can be on an exit strategy that you're executing and be on your way out of that misery. Some of you, middle class mindset, miserable, struggling and suffering, and also not doing anything different about it, not making a plan to exit out of that circumstance, right? Not exploring your options, just miserable, and telling me and everybody else that you're genuinely stuck and nothing can change. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with being in the middle as long as the middle is where you want to be. Now, let me explain this middle class mindset a little more, okay? I love it when my coach taught it many years ago because he was like, I love poor people. He was like, because they don't have no expectations for anything. He was like, they so content. He was like, I love poor people. They expect to get their benefits or their assistance every month or whatever it's going to look like, and they get it. And they just as happy as pie until they come back again next month on the 1st. He like, they not trying to do more than what they doing. Like, I love the poor. He was like, and I love the rich people because they willing to risk it all to go to the next level. He was like, but it's the middle class. And I had no data when he taught this. So I just sat back and took it in like, And now after talking to a countless number of you, I'm like, it is. He said, it's the people who have accumulated degrees, have accumulated houses and cars and property. We finally, accomplished the dream of buying our home. It's the people that have accumulated seniority in that role, tenure in that role. It's the people that have accumulated some type of power or position or title in that role. Maybe you even got people reporting to you in that role, right? You living your best middle class life. And there's nothing wrong with being middle class, as long as you ain't complaining to the rest of us about it. If you're proud of where you are, be proud of where you are. But if you miserable and you complaining to us about it every Sunday, Lord, I got to go back in here tomorrow. You complaining and celebrating every Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Why can't Tuesdays be happy? Why can't Wednesdays be happy? Why you only happy on Saturday? You're miserable on Sunday because Monday is around the corner. You're miserable on Thursday because Friday ain't here yet. Like, you mean to tell me you only got one day a week of bliss? So if that's you, you are miserable in your 9 to 5 because you are afraid of losing everything you've accumulated. I have a play big sister who I love because she is happily middle class. So every time we get together, we go out to dinner and we all hang out. Like, there's a group of us, right? And we all hang out. And of course, we all talk about catching up, talk about what's going on. And I'm the only entrepreneur in the group. And so they all want to know how's business, what's going on, whatever, right? And I'm always telling them, like, I share the successes, I share the challenges, right? They hear about the money, all that stuff. And I love her specifically because she has said on countless times, she's like, man, I ain't never wanted that. I ain't never wanted to start my own business. I ain't never wanted to be my own boss, and I still don't. She is so pleasantly pleased with her job, her husband, and her 3 kids, right? And just like the average middle class family, she go to work multiple days a week. She take that paycheck and she take care of her family. She travel and she live her best life. And she is so happy and content. That's what I'm talking about. I'm like, yes. So if that's you, I'm not talking to you right now, right? If that's you, you like, I'm chilling. Like, I don't want more responsibility than what I have. I don't want to have to hustle with no business and figure out all that. I don't want to do nothing else but what I'm doing. I done went to got the degree. I'm working in what I got the degree for, and I'm pleased. That's her all day. Happily middle class. She not in the 1%, not even in the 5%. But she ain't below. Like, she travels several times a year. She got disposable income. She living her best middle class life. And let me tell you something, there is nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people who are doing that and they are pleased, but a lot of you are not pleased. And so you're afraid of losing what you accumulated. And that's the reason why you're staying stuck in this career, right? And so part of the reason you're miserable is because you spent so much time accumulating your degrees, your education, your certifications, your seniority, your tenure, your position, your car, your home, your image, your identity, but also you spent a whole bunch of years also accumulating your debt, health that's fair at best, chronic stress, below average relationships, a quality of life that wasn't your first choice. But if it takes giving up the first list to get rid of the second list, you ain't decided that it's worth it. Like, I know that my health is below average, Lisa. I know that my stress is above average, Lisa. I know that my debt is out of control, Lisa. I know that a lot of my relationships are fractured, Lisa. But if to get rid of that, I have to give up the image, the identity, the car, the home, the 401k that came with a car, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. And that's why you stuck. You haven't decided that it's worth it. Like, I could potentially start looking for other options. I could potentially get out here and really start applying for or going after the money that I believe I'm worth, the position, that the things that I really want to do. But dang, I will lose all my seniority here. Like, people look up to me. People answer to me. I'm proud of that. Like, I feel like that's a flex. I want to keep that. I got these degrees. I got this certification. If I go somewhere else, I'm going to be new. I'm going to be the low one on the totem pole. I'm not going to have all this title. Matter of fact, if I go do something else, that might come with lower pay. I might have to turn this car in, right? I might have to consider downsizing my home. And for a lot of you, it's not worth it. I'm not willing to lose some square footage to get back my health, my peace, and repair my relationships. I'm not willing to lose that square footage, Lisa. And I'm telling you right now, if you make that decision, that's fine. Just stop complaining to us about it. So the second reason that most people are miserable in their careers, based on what I've seen and coached people through in the last 10 years, is they're afraid of losing what they've accumulated. Like, yeah, I don't want the debt. I don't want the credit card debt and the student loans and the personal loans. Like, I don't want the debt, coach. I don't want the stress that this job caused me. But the way you talking, I'm gonna have to downsize my car and my home. And that don't look good. I'm gonna have to stop eating out so much. I'm gonna have to be new at something again. And that's gonna flare up my insecurities. I like feeling like I got mastery over stuff. I hate learning new stuff because I don't feel smart. So you don't want to give up all this identity. You don't want to give up all this image that you've accumulated. And so you're deciding to stay where you are. Middle class mindset. Middle class mindset says, I've worked too hard to get to where I am, and I'm not willing to risk it for anything better. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but just stop being miserable around the rest of us. Like, if you're going to choose to stick with what you accumulated and not take any risk to possibly make your situation better, there's nothing wrong with that choice. The problem is when your low vibrational frequency starts dripping down to the rest of us. The problem is when you show up in communities and act like you want something different, but you don't ever change your behavior. That's the problem. Stop fronting. Do we still say fronting? Lord, I got to get hip. Dang. But anyway, stop fronting, right? And so reason number 2, you're afraid of giving up what you've accumulated. And let me say something about control here. And I'm going to compare it to entrepreneurship, because one of the other things that a lot of you guys believe you have accumulated that you're afraid to give up is control. So right now, you're partly staying in the institution that you're at. You're partly staying in the job that you're in because you want control. You want the control or the illusion of control that institution gives you. Maybe you've been there so long and it's so predictable. You know what to expect on the job. You know what to expect from the people. You know what to expect in your paycheck. And so that makes you feel like you have control, right? And so for a lot of you, the reason that you don't want to leave, you're afraid of losing of what you accumulated. And part of what you've accumulated is an illusion of control. And then you say like, well, coach, if I leave and I do what I really want to do, which I really want to write books, I really want to sing, I really want to start a nonprofit, I really want to help seniors, I really want to work with children, I really want to do this. You feel like I don't know enough about that. That's not predictable enough. And so I'm afraid of leaving this to possibly do that because your job has given you the illusion of control. You know your schedule, you know your job description, you know how the process works, so you think you're in control. Here's a wake-up call. You're not. You're not in control. It's just familiar. Somebody can make a decision right now, today, immediately, in the next second that blows up everything you thought you had when it comes to control. It's familiar. It's not that you're in control. Matter of fact, my pastor said something yesterday in church that I thought was really good. He said, just because, listen to this sentence very carefully. He said, just because you're not in control doesn't mean things are out of control. So you're 100% right that if you decide to do something different when it comes to your career and your work, whether that's a different job, a different industry, whether that's starting a business, just because it's unfamiliar and you can't predict everything does not mean things are out of control. So just because you're not in control when you try something new doesn't mean things are out of control. I mean, it's not black or white. It's not like, well, I have all this familiarity, I have all this predictability, and so that makes me in control. And if I don't have that, then things are out of control. Not true. And so I want you guys to understand that the illusion of control is one of the things that a lot of you guys are afraid of giving up, afraid of losing. You feel like you've accumulated some level of control, predictability, familiarity. It's just familiarity though. And the thing that you want to do instead is unfamiliar. And that's what gives you pause, but it doesn't make it more unsafe. Okay. So before I get into the last reason, let me say this one more time. Just because the thing that you want to do instead is unfamiliar, that doesn't make it more unsafe than your 9 to 5. Your 9 to 5 is just as unsafe as the thing you are considering doing instead. It's just that your 9 to 5 is familiar. But trust me when I tell you, anytime you work for someone else, you don't have as much control as you think you have. Just because things have been going a certain way for a certain amount of time, I can predict the work, I can predict the money, I can predict the seasons and the cycles of the business and the workload. Be careful with the illusion of control. And nothing has been more evident to all of us than the past year. So it's okay if you want to stay there. But if you're going to stay there, stop complaining about Monday mornings and stop celebrating Thursday nights because thank God it's Friday. Like, stop acting like it's not okay to be miserable. Don't think that you are in good company by complaining all the time about how much you hate your work and how miserable you are. If you're not going to decide to do anything different, just settle into the middle class mindset of I don't make big risks and I don't take big moves because I'm afraid of losing everything I accumulated. Just say that, right? Stop acting like you're stuck. You're not stuck. You just have the illusion of control. And what you want to do is unfamiliar, but you're afraid of losing everything you've accumulated. And for a lot of you, that includes your identity. Okay, so that's the first two. Let's get into the possible. Remember I told you it was 2 impossible reasons why your career is unbearable. Here's the final one. Now, when I teach chronic stress, I do this thing called the Stress Elimination Lab. And we just did our last one this month, March 2026. And when I'm teaching somebody how to eliminate chronic stress versus just managing stress, I teach them that they need to create an exit, enter, or an engagement strategy, right? So I teach them how to create an exit strategy, an enter strategy, or an engagement strategy. However, I tell them that before you can create an exit, enter, or an engagement strategy, there is a prerequisite. And the prerequisite for having an exit strategy from chronic stress is a decision. It's a decision. Some of you are stuck in your career in your 9 to 5 because you're afraid, you're unwilling, or you're incapable of making a decision and sticking to it. You're unwilling, you're afraid, or you're incapable of making a decision and sticking to it. Okay? Before you can create an exit strategy from that 9 to 5 that you're miserable in, you have to make a decision about what you want to do instead. When I tell you I didn't even know indecisiveness was the new pandemic. Do you know how many people are running around here completely full-blown diagnosis of indecisiveness? I'd be like, okay, I got it. You ain't got to say another word, another syllable about how miserable you are in that job, in that relationship, in that thing. But here's the most important question. What do you want instead? Dead silence. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I could start a bit. Maybe I'll go write the book. Maybe I'll just retire. Maybe but maybe if I could, I don't know. You want to know why you don't know? I'll tell you why. Because all of your energy has went to focusing on what you don't want. All of your energy has been depleted thinking about, focus on, complaining about how miserable the current situation is. You spend so much energy complaining about what you don't like and what you don't want and what you don't like on the job that favor can't even find you because you have no destination. Favor can't even find you. You have no destination. You know what it makes me think about? You know how men tease women all the time about not knowing what they want to eat? I'm pretty sure many of you guys have saw those memes and stuff. You know, when you ask a woman, POV, when you ask a woman what she wants to eat, right? And what do a lot of us do? What do a lot of us do when our partner or somebody asks us what we want to eat? First thing we do, we rattle off all the stuff we don't want. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. We rattle off all the stuff we don't want, right? I don't really want burrito. I don't want Chipotle. Nah, I ain't really in the mood for tacos. Nah, pasta. We just had that yesterday. We rattle off all the stuff we don't want. But baby, we sitting in this car right now. And he said the car can't move until what? Until we have a destination. The car can't move until we have a destination. All your energy is going towards thinking about all the stuff you don't want, all the stuff you don't like. Baby, favor can't find you because you don't have a destination. Because you're afraid, unwilling, or incapable of making a decision. If you want out of this situation, you must have a destination. Destination equals decision. If your 9 to 5 is the number one source of your stress, stop spending so much time and energy thinking about what you hate about the job, what you don't want to do, the people that get on your nerves, the toxic work culture, the not enough money, not enough benefits, not being recognized for the work that you do, people stealing your ideas, all the crap that comes with it, and start thinking about what you want instead. Favor can't find you because you have not put a destination in the GPS. That man, that woman don't care about what you don't want to eat. They need to know what you want. Your coach don't care about how bad it is over there. I need to know what you want before I can coach you to a destination. So the third reason why you miserable in your career is because you're not making a decision about what you're going to do instead. And you kind of know what you want. Like, well, I kind of want to start a business, but back to number one, I don't believe in myself. So you're not willing to claim it because you don't think you're capable of it. It's a whole cycle. So let me tell you something. It's so crazy. Something else that I heard in church recently that I really loved because it reminded me of something I taught. He said, when you analyze too long, listen to this. I forgot how good it was till I started saying it. Okay. He said in church, when you analyze too long, you abort the blessing that comes with obedience. And here's my way of saying that. Your biggest enemy is deliberation. You spend weeks, months, and years deliberating about something that you felt in a split second. That deliberation costs you way more than you expected. He said, when you analyze too long, you abort the blessing that comes with obedience. Now, y'all know that resonated with me. What do I teach y'all all the time? Radical obedience. I say, favor can't find you if you don't have a destination. What if the only reason you were miserable was because you were refusing to make a decision? So here's the takeaway questions I need you to ask yourself. I told you the 3 reasons that you are stressed out in your 9 to 5 is either because you don't believe in yourself, your confidence and your self-esteem and your self-efficacy is at an all-time low, or number 2, you have a middle-class mindset. You're afraid of losing all that you've accumulated, okay? Or a possible, and this just probably is a addendum to number 1 and 2, you're unwilling, afraid, or incapable of making a decision. So you don't believe in yourself and you're indecisive. You have a middle-class mindset and you're indecisive, right? So the question becomes, what are you willing to heal from? That parent, that person that told you you wasn't good enough, you would never amount to nothing, you're imperfect. What are you willing to heal from? What are you willing to give up? If you think that car, that house, that income bracket, that title, that seniority, if you made that your ceiling, you done shut yourself out. If that's your ceiling, if you feel like I've worked so hard to accumulate these things and you're not willing to risk them for peace of mind and better quality of life and a better contribution to society, you're in trouble. So question number 1 was, what are you willing to heal from? Question number 2 is, what are you willing to give up? These are not hypothetical questions. These are questions that I want you to ask yourself out loud when you're driving down the street. Cut the noise off If you on your way to that 9 to 5, if you on your way home from that 9 to 5, if you on your way thinking about the 9 to 5, if you in your feelings and going through your cycle of angry, sad, depressive thoughts about the job, all the stuff that comes with doing work that you hate, have come to be stressed out about, all of that. I want you to switch off going through the list of everything you hate and despise. And I want you to switch on these questions. What am I willing to heal from? You got to admit that you're scarred and still holding on to stuff so that your confidence can get up so that you can make bolder decisions. You don't make bold decisions when you have no confidence, when you don't believe in yourself. So what am I willing to heal from? What am I willing to admit out loud? Am I willing to admit that that last relationship, he or she broke me down so bad that it discolored how I see myself? Are you willing to admit that to somebody so y'all can start working on it, right? Are you willing to let go of the shame so that you can heal, so that you can get out of this misery that you call a 9 to 5? So what am I willing to heal from? Question number 2 that you're going to ask yourself when you're driving down the street. What are you willing to give up? This car is nice, but is it nice enough to take another 5 years of my peace? This home is nice, but do I need this much square? And I'm not saying you're going to have to downsize, but sometimes the accumulation of these things has given us the illusion that we have some level of success that we can't part ways from. God is the provider. Why are you looking around at all this stuff? God is the provider. Why are you looking at that title? If the title has become your identity, if the fact that people report to you has become your identity, but you're miserable, but you're unwilling to give that up, if your health is not your top priority, what are you doing? So what am I willing to give up? Have I made this work and this job my identity? What are you willing to give up? Okay. And the final question is, what am I willing to make a decision about? What am I willing to decide on? Am I courageous enough to not be scared to admit what I really want? Because again, deliberation has been your biggest enemy, not because you don't actually have a decision, it's because there's something about claiming that decision that scares you, right? And so you spend weeks, months, and years deliberating about something that you felt in a split second. Deliberation is killing the game. So those are some things I want you to think about. If your 9 to 5 is your number one source of stress, do something about it. If you got stung today, that was an invitation to make a decision to go forward and do something different. All right, so I'm out of here. We'll see you back here next Monday. Love y'all forever. Talk to you later. And I hope today blessed y'all. Peace out, y'all.
You tuned in today because, like me, you refuse to let your good become the enemy of your great. You're not settling for good health when optimal is well within reach. If you're ready to go from good to great, visit lisaangelsmith.com to learn more about our plant-based health coaching program, Farm to Table, and our plant-based business accelerator and coaching certification. But before you go, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast. Until next time, remember, radical obedience is still undefeated. Stay obedient.